I've been working in the field of yoga and mindfulness as an educator for a little over 15 years now, and I actually stumbled across it for myself. So when you think about regulating, it's not just for children, it's also for adults. And when I started to see what it could do for my own self-regulation, my own stress levels, happiness factors, I thought this can work in my classroom too. And also, I worked with multilingual learners at the time, and it's such a accessible component for all of us that language didn't really need to play a big part. And so that's how I got started. And my research base in mindfulness and yoga comes from family yoga. And we looked at families over 6 weeks, and we said, what can yoga do for families of young children? And what we found out was that 100% of families said they felt more connected, more regulated, and more prepared to function together as a family when mindfulness and yoga were implemented. So that was one piece of research that I felt this is impactful for the early childhood field. The other pieces of research really came from my own classroom and just observation of children, conversations with children. And one really stands out to me. I asked my kindergartners, I said, does yoga and mindfulness help you? Sometimes, none of the time, or most of the time? And a little girl looked right at me and she said, I can't answer that. And I said, why? And she said, because it's all of the time. And so after that moment, I knew this belongs in spaces where young children are. So I've been working with different early childhood facilities, elementary classrooms, to just think about how do we give this to students and children and families. They own their own bodies, they own their own breath, and this is one of the easiest tools that we can use to help everybody co-regulate.
I started with yoga in the classroom. When I first started this classroom, there was a book here, and it was using yoga with children. And so I opened it up and we kind of started working on it, and had some other adults enter the room and say, hey, that's just really cool. So we just kind of kept it up, and then conscious discipline happened. And it really showed me that mindfulness, breathing, yoga, a lot of those self-regulation things are fabulous in the classroom.
Yoga and mindfulness can work alongside of any program, any curricula, any schedule that you already have in place. It's not a on top of, it's a partner. And when we think about early childhood in the state of Illinois, and we think about the pyramid model and the work that we're doing there with social emotional learning, the research has shown that adding yoga and mindfulness to already evidence-based social emotional learning programs can amplify that and also help children be in a space where they're more ready to respond to that kind of social emotional learning. So it's not an add-on, it's just a partner, and a really easy partner that doesn't depend a lot on time, a lot on space, or a lot on financial resources. Just start with a breath. It's really that easy. You don't have to know the poses, you don't have to be going to yoga classes, just start with a breath.
In our classroom, we have a wide variety of children with different abilities and as well as English skills. And so most of our children are learning English. And so we do have some yoga cards that we've been using that have some really cute pictures of animals showing different yoga poses. And those pictures have been great cues for those friends still learning English in order for them to do it independently as well as with teachers. And then we have some children that also are working on engagement and joint attention. And we find that those cards are helpful for them, especially working with a smaller group. That has also helped with that joint attention and helping them be more engaged in the process. We have been using it in our transitions when we come back, from the bathroom or from the gym and the children are lined up. And we've been having a lot of fun because we have been able to engage with our school nurse, who posts a pose every week for us on the hallway there. And so the children are excited every week to find out what is the new pose. And they've been enjoying practicing that. Also, I would say keep it quick and simple. 3 to 5 minutes a day is, I think, ample enough time for them to just get their bodies and their minds ready for learning.
The implementation that I have used to spread yoga throughout our program is the yoga pose of the week. So in the hallway, there is a Nurse Amber yoga pose of the week. It changes every week. And while the students are in the hallway, usually while they're waiting to use the restroom, they can do that yoga pose. Sometimes I'll come out and do it with them. Sometimes it's something their teachers do with them, and then something that they can take back to their classroom to utilize as well.
We have a yoga basket that has a variety of things in it that they can use to do yoga if they choose to. And it's also where the yoga guru chooses their method for leading yoga. They can choose, we have foam puzzle pieces. We have dice that have different yoga poses on them. We also have a dice that has a timer, and we have egg timers that have different times. So they would roll it and that would tell them how much time they do that motion or do that pose. So there are, and yoga books and all kinds of things in that basket that just give them a variety of ways to use yoga on their own.
I implement yoga in the classroom because I've noticed that it helps calm their bodies down and their brains. When we do yoga in the classroom, we use picture cards with the poses on them for the children, and I try to walk around in case they have any questions on what pose it is. But other than that, we just use peer models. I'll say, do like Ayla or do like E-class, and then they know to look at that model. There is a little boy in our class. He typically does not do any of the yoga poses with us. He just kind of does his own thing while we're doing that. But the other day we did some yoga, and then the children started playing an interest area time, and I looked over and he happened to be laying on the ground with his feet up in the air, and I immediately said to the other teachers, I said, look at him. Look at him. It looks like he's doing yoga. So I think just him just taking it all in and watching the other kids, seeing them on the ground, moving their bodies in different ways, helped him. Whether or not he was doing yoga, I don't know, but it looked like he was doing one of the poses. We went through the cards and we found a pose that we thought looked familiar, and so we called it yoga.
When we think about the schedules of early childhood teachers and professionals and families, right? It feels crunched. It feels like we don't have another minute in our day. But what we know about yoga and mindfulness in the classroom is that teachers who have consistently used yoga and mindfulness find that the time that they spend on crises, challenging behaviors, that time reduces significantly. The good news about yoga and mindfulness is that we know with just 2 to 3 minutes a day, the brain benefits, the body benefits that come from that, the lower cortisol levels, that all comes from 2 to 3 consistent minutes a day. It's great if teachers can put in, a 10-minute session after lunch when kids need to really regulate, or, we all get there in the morning, we need to co-regulate, which means I need to regulate as an adult, child needs to regulate, so we can all, build that together. Great, put in 5 to 10 minutes if you have time in your morning meeting. But the reality is, if you breathe and move together for 2 to 3 minutes a day, the impact it can make will come back to you in folds in time. So I think that that's what's important, is that it's such a small amount of time for such a large impact. I would also say that there are times in your schedule that make sense, which we've already kind of referred to, right? When you think about mindfulness and yoga and the when, it makes sense in the morning when we're all trying to come together. It makes sense after lunch or snack or transitions. It makes a lot of sense when we're waiting in lines, right? We're waiting for the bathroom, or we're, headed to music. So find those times in your day where you already need to transition, you already need to shift, And mindfulness and yoga can just ease that pain a little bit, ease that transition, and also bring the benefits that you need to see.
For a teacher to understand, for students to do, and for families to understand, because it's not something exclusive to the educational community. It is out everywhere in the world. It is a simple thing to add to the classroom. You're going to help your students with flexibility, with emotional regulation. They are going to get their confidence, their coordination. There are so many things that can be gained by using yoga in the classroom, especially if you make it a part of your routine.
So some of us have in our minds this vision of yoga and mindfulness where maybe it's meditation, maybe it's these special poses or a class. But really, it's about how our brains and bodies connect to help us be more ready for the world, right? More ready for what comes at us. When we think about mindfulness, we think about like paying attention with curiosity. And when you connect your breath with your brain and your body movement, we activate something called the parasympathetic nerve system. And really, that's a big word for saying our ability to resist fight or flight. So what happens is when you take a big breath, right, from your belly, from down here, you activate something called your vagus nerve. And your vagus nerve actually runs from right about down here all the way down your back. And when you do that, it sends a message to your amygdala, which is the alarm part of your brain, to say, you know what, slow down. You don't have to react hastily. You don't have to be upset. You can take a breath and respond. And when our brains allow our bodies to do that, we see cortisol levels lower. We see children in a space where they can respond instead of react. We see the ability to develop empathy improve. We see compassion improve. And when a whole class does that together, research shows that we see improved positive culture over time. And the same is what we saw in our families, right? In that research, we saw improved family culture over time. But that's all because our brains were able to connect to our bodies in really healthy ways.
Mindfulness, breath, and yoga practices impact our program significantly, specifically at the preschool level, because it builds in calming techniques, not only as a group, but also in ways to self-soothe so that when the trusted adult is not near the student, they can calm themselves. We have had specific instances in our program where we have had some trauma triggers for students that have had past trauma that then come to school, and things such as turning off lights or loud noises trigger that for them. And specifically the calming breathing, the nice deep breaths, focusing on their heart rate, slowing that down. For preschoolers, they don't know to focus on their heart rate, but that mindful breathing automatically does that. Same thing with the yoga. When you're focusing your brain on stretching and doing yoga poses, you have a hard time ruminating then on the trigger from the trauma.
In our classroom, we have been learning about the implementation of the pyramid model. And as far as how does that relate to the yoga practice that we're doing and the mindful breathing, I would say the biggest thing is that self-regulation. It really helps the children be aware of their bodies as well as their minds and what their emotions are at that moment. We do a lot of practice with them being in tune with what emotion am I feeling right now, and then helping them to navigate that and to be able to express that in different ways.
Every day, often, you have that child that goes from 0 to 100. And you hear the bellowing scream because they are frustrated and don't know what to do. We only have a couple of those now because everybody has kind of evolved into calming themselves down during a conflict, but we have a couple. And if we hear their stress, the teacher can turn around and say, hey, take a breath. And almost every single time they will stop their tears. And when they're really worked up, they will stop their tears. They will take a shaky breath, but it's instantaneous. That is something that has improved the emotional atmosphere in the classroom everywhere. And as teachers, even across the room, we can help them remember how they calm themselves down. The biggest health goal is the deep breathing, because being conscious of air going into your body and knowing that when you're upset or in a stressful situation, that you can take that deep breath. And we even talk about what a deep breath does for you. A deep breath puts oxygen in your lungs, and that oxygen goes in your body. And when that happens, you can think better and your muscles work better. For instance, we just started the Take 5, which was an activity we did today where they're breathing up and down with their hand. That went home. That page, that handout went home, so the parents understood what that means, because kids go home with stuff all of the time.
So yoga and mindfulness in a classroom doesn't have to be difficult. You don't even have to bring extra tools. As long as kids have their breath and their body, we're ready to go. So let's take a minute to go through a few mindfulness exercises that you could easily use in your classroom in just a few minutes. So the first one we're going to see is mountain pose. You might just think it looks like you're just standing there. That's true. But my feet are sinking into the ground. I'm kind of pushing all of my body energy into the floor. I always tell kids, push your energy through your toes. And then you're gonna take a deep breath in. And when you do that, you're going to see your belly expand and contract. That's exactly what you're looking for. So we'll take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. Relax your shoulders. Take another deep breath in and let it all the way out. Then we're gonna go from mountain into what we call waterfall. And here's a trick. When kids turn upside down, it actually helps kind of reset the brain and body in a way that we can refocus. So we're gonna take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. And roll that body back up. Roll those shoulders back and smile. Take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. Now we're gonna try a fun one. Sometimes yoga and mindfulness is used to calm the body down, but sometimes it can be used to wake us up. And so we're gonna look at one called bumblebee breath. So these are gonna be the wings. We're gonna tuck those wings right behind our head. These are gonna be the wings. And we're gonna tuck those wings right behind our head and give ourselves a little head massage. Take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. And then we're gonna say sleep, bumblebee, sleep. Take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. Bzzz. When kids use that buzzing sound, it's actually a natural stress reducer. Okay, a lot of times in classrooms, we want kids to be able to calm down. We want them to be able to center their bodies, be regulated, and ready for something new. It might even come after a challenging behavior, a meltdown, a moment of sadness. We can do something called countdown to calm. And when we use countdown to calm, you're gonna take short breaths in through your nose and let short breaths out with an extended release. And I'm going to model that for you. This is one of my favorites because once it's learned, it can be used anywhere at any time. Take deep breaths in and let them out. Again. You'll do that about 5 or 6 times in a row. And if it worked, you'll know it. because your brain and your body will feel more ready to go. The last one we want to look at is star pose. So we're going to take a deep breath and we're going to move our bodies all the way out. And you're going to put all of your strength out through your fingertips. Take a deep breath in. Let it all the way out. And then we're going to tip that body up. And I always tell students, shine like the star that you are. Take a deep breath in. Let it all the way out. And when you do a pose like this, you want to always do the other side. Take a deep breath in. And let it all the way out. And we'll meet back in mountain. All right, deep breath in. Let it all the way out. When you start this in your own classroom, it doesn't matter what the poses are called. It doesn't matter which poses you do. The foot placement isn't really that important. It really matters are kids using their belly breaths to help their brains connect with their bodies through movement so that oxygen gets to their brains and they feel ready to go. So I encourage you pick up a card deck, look online, grab a text. You can do this in your own classroom.
I think getting everyone involved. I have seen in our building, from our principal to our support staff and our leaders and our teachers, everyone does a little bit of something, and that kind of consistency overall makes a huge difference.
I would let other educators know that yoga is beneficial in the classroom. We've noticed since we've been doing it that they're able to focus more at a large group time, which is pretty much right after we do the yoga. It just really calms their bodies down and their brains, gets them self-regulated. They have to, during the yoga, they have to self-regulate and hold a pose, then do the deep breath, and kind of figure out where their bodies are and how they should position their bodies. And so it just gets them regulated.
Yoga is self-regulation, physically and emotionally. You're in control of your body, and they're learning control of their body by doing these fun poses that are fun for them. They don't know we're doing yoga. They're doing it themselves. They're regulating their bodies, they are positioning their bodies, and it really improves their self-regulation.